All right, everything is broadcasting clearly. We should be ready to go. I'm going to wait for a confirmation inside the chat that we're getting audio on the YouTube end, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for participating today, Tribe. It is yet another explosive presentation.
All right, everything is
directly
broadcasting
catered to our
clearly. We should be
consciousness
ready to
and
go.
our
I'm gonna wait for a
experience
confirmation
universally
inside the chat that
here
we're
together in
getting
this
audio
co-creation.
on the YouTube end, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for participating today, Tribe. It is.
I want to give thanks to those that are in the chat,
presentation.
the pillars,
All right,
the
everything is
moderators,
broadcasting
those
to our
participating
consciousness
today.
and our experience
You're seeing, all right, so
universally
we got a
here together
confirmation
in
that
this
audio is coming through
co-creation
good.
on
All
the YouTube end,
systems
and then
go.
we'll
Let's go ahead and get it
started.
started.
Thank you so much.
Boom. Okay, so we should be
Today,
getting
Tribe.
live
It is
video here.
Thanks to those that are
And
in the chat presentation.
just gonna go ahead and wait for that
Pillars,
confirmation
moderators,
so I can let
those
it breathe a bit, and then we're
participating
gonna go
today
ahead and
in
get
our
started.
experience all right, so we got a
All right,
confirmation.
yep,
Audio
there it
coming
is.
through good.
Okay, so here we are today, Tribe, wholeness and balance vibrations. It's again another time and an opportunity for us to connect. Today I have something that I feel the necessity of actually explaining to at least those that have been listening to this message and have been enjoying their connection so far. We've been up for 9 years, actually longer. I guess it's 10 years, somewhere in there now, transmitting what I feel is an amazing message. I feel like if anyone's been following this message even for a year, they should have accrued something to the extent of having a PhD in metaphysics. Like I believe personally that we've now exhausted the topic so much in a way that we've left a blueprint that anyone that is looking for a deeper connection within themselves, that they will find it and they will see it so elaborately pulled apart and then put back together. It'll be enough to guide them if they wish. This conversation today, that's why I say it's about masters in the game only. And I say in the game, not of the game. And that's, you could be in the world, but not of the world, right? Where that statement is made. So in this case, when I say in the game, it means that whatever the condition is of the reality, that's really how we see it. And if it's not really being serious, then we take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes we think it's a joke, and that's what makes a game, and that's what makes an illusion. So I just want to clarify again that when I say game, because there's a lot of stuff happening in reality, it seems to be very serious to us. Lots of things are happening. There's some folks perishing off the dimension. Some folks are sick. A lot of people are stressed out. So a lot of stuff is happening. So it seems very real, right? But I say it's a game because the childlike behavior that exists on this dimension, first, in thinking that there is a death. That is the true demarcation of the high magnitude versus this space. Is there's a complete awareness amongst many other things in the great beyond that there is no such thing as death. So for those that believe in death, think that it can happen, surround their existence with it, and bring in the fears that are associated with it, etc. From the higher levels, you can't be taken serious like that. Okay, so that's what I mean by it's a game. So let's say, for instance, with children, because children love to play games. With children, sometimes when they do things, a lot of times when they do things as a parent, if they did that same thing as an adult, then there would be an issue. But because it's a child, you don't really take it serious. You generally put the child in their proper place. You take the things away from them that they've been doing it with, and you work to teach them why they shouldn't do these kind of things, right? So that's also what I mean by, hey, if you're acting childlike, then you can't be taken serious. I also will say that today's message, we have a lot of metaphysical conversations. I mean, they're beautiful. We had one last night. It was amazing. It just kept unfolding and unfolding with the Ambassador Tribe. But today is actually somewhat, I won't say opposite, because I think everything is relative, by the way. I'm a 360 degree full spectrum being. So I'm not sitting on one of these polarities where I think that a part of my life is not supposed to be a part of my life, or a part of my existence is not supposed to be in existence. And all these weird double binding conundrums that people have going on in their minds these days as they're weaning through consciousness through contrasting. Is this one good? Is this one bad? Do I like this? Do I like them? Do I not like that? Which, of course, is also childish. This leads to the mindset that we're dealing with and that's purveying things all the time, no matter if it's 80-year-old politicians or whether it's even 12-year-old kids on the iPad. There is this dualistic perspective that is the beginning, or I don't want to say the beginning. It's one of the phases of how we learn things. We call it binary. And I trust that the consciousness collectively is going to learn why it should move on to trinary or a unity where everything is connected and everything is considered. So I like to do that because it actually gets me into a deeper perspective of what's happening in the reality, allows me to be an observer rather than a victim and a participant all the time. And it works wonders for seeing the huge Mandelbrot, seeing the huge fractal and how everything is the same versus being so zoomed in that you start thinking everything is different, seeing everything is different. And again, I only wanted to mark one time again the difference between the worlds beyond, or the world beyond, no plurals, the world beyond. Everything is connected and there's no idea separation. The planes of separation are useful. I'm not playing the good and bad with you here today. The game is useful in many respects. We get to divide so many pieces of infinity in here. We got different names. We now have different trees. We got different bugs. All of them look different. We got different chemicals. We have so much difference, and that's what this space is for. But realize the way that difference got here now is the same way new differences are going to keep coming into the space. And so I do want to say very specifically a question. What happens when you begin to bring technologies into the space that are from hundreds of thousands, if not light years in the future? Okay, now let me explain this because, again, I promise not to go too metaphysical on you today. So some may say, well, are you saying, Seven, that this knowledge was pulled off some kind of spaceship and then now it's here with us? Possibly, but I don't even have to bring it to you like that. I only have to bring it to you that it's here, and I'm talking about artificial intelligence. We started using it, building neural networks, and then they started traversing what we would call time. Time is experience. Time is how long it takes us to accomplish something. That's time. So if I'm going in for a master's degree, on standard, master's degree takes me 6 to 8 years. Master's degree for a neural network may take a few minutes. So this is how time is traversed, because if something is capable of doing something that would take you a long time in a few moments, it's already going to the future. So the calculator is obviously one thing, but we're dealing with now like a calculator on steroids. And I'm going to explain to you how that's become an issue in society, as anything powerful does. You'll see a pattern here that consistently happens, and it's every time we switch into different ages and different epochs, the energetic current, the core to the energetic current that's coming through, whether it's gold, whether it's plastic in industry, whatever it is, that gets sequestered immediately by those who have enough reserves to begin to invest in the new currency that's coming across, right? So what I'm explaining to you, that in the illusion or in the game, the new currency that is now come across is called artificial intelligence. Okay, now it's even one surreal moment to just sit back and look at the name. So you're telling me this is fake knowledge, basically fake intelligence, artificial or not real intelligence. Okay, that's almost a paradox within itself. And that's why the title for today's presentation is Artificial Future, because if anything to do with what you're calling artificial intelligence starts becoming a big part of the reality that we're living in, then the reality would actually become not reality. It would become artificial. Everything would be curated. So you can imagine then, because we've witnessed this even with cameras, that it's very difficult and very tough to just be yourself when the camera turns on, or even just to be yourself when people that you admire come around. So too, in the same way that if you have a camera on the street and you're walking, you may have wanted to spark up a joint. You may want to have done something that you would have normally done because, quote unquote, nobody was watching. But now, since that's there, you're going to act more artificial because obviously you don't want anybody seeing you breaking laws. Okay. So first, I want to also start with, well, since I've already started, let me work with my focus here, because I keep slipping out of focus. Let me see that. Hold on real quick. Let me fix this up real quick. I got to make sure that we broadcast this the proper way, especially for the archives. Let me see here. I think my focus seems good enough, but I do want to speed up the frame rate here. Just give me a quick second. Boom, just like that. Okay. All right, that's better. Okay, so now, again, because many of you came in the conversation today, we're all connected. We're in this co-creation, and maybe you were looking for the heartfelt that you're going to get tomorrow. Now, tomorrow is obviously key makers, and we're going to get in there. We're going to keep building with ideology, go deep into our experiences internally, and looking at the external through the lenses of the planets, etc. We love that. But as I said, today, that's not what exactly we have going on today. And also, this is because I do need to explain to you that what we've uncovered together, what we've unveiled in this 10 years of magnum opus, is that the quote unquote lost key, the name of God, if you may, is you. The human torsion field and all the power and the magnificence of it. I've spent 10 years even doing this much of describing what it is really about. Also, when I say that there's two worlds, it means that you have a spiritual world. That's why we always encourage others to understand first, to get it together inside, because there's so much power there. Whatever you do in there, it's definitely going to affect the external reality. We've learned by fact that at minimum, the spiritual or internal reality is 7 times more stronger than this one. If you like the number 9, you could say 9 times more powerful. But there is a magnitude of how much more powerful the spiritual realm is. And this is why you can control things from the spiritual realm. You can morph things that happen here in the reality. It will take a little time because that's also the difference in this frequency and spectrum. It's slower. It's a lower vibration. So when you manifest something from on high, it takes some time to seep and birth into this. But that's the true way in which you start changing and moving around things in your life, okay? So the reason why I want to explain that is because that means that we've already uncovered the great secret. The great secret has a lot to do with the divine feminine, especially the divine feminine aspect of yourself. You know, you have a God and a goddess within, and you have a neutral that is even beyond those polarities. And what we've learned in this metaphysical journey is how to connect into ourselves. Okay, so that's my disclaimer for today, because now I got to talk about what goes on and what's happening in the game. Because there's a few of our brothers and sisters that are actually experiencing some stuff right now, and they're a bit clueless on what to do. And they keep popping on this station and listening to, let's say, whoever's got the next video that they have on their playlist. And at times, these beings are coming forward with their wildest dreams and ideas and desires of danger. They're still kind of like on this Christian programming, and then they come in with their doomsday. See, this is how it was supposed to happen. See, and this is going to happen next. And see, and then they're predicting their own demise. And then they're using the consciousness, which are like processors of the other beings that are actually listening to them, that believe in them, because that's very important. And it begins to manifest a reality for those beings, because don't think that the reality that we're all living in is all the same. This is in the game. That's not true. In the great beyond, absolutely. But in the game, that's the whole thing with this. People exist in different parts of the spectrum. So what could be hurting you right now, making you cry, making you afraid, could be doing exactly opposite to another being because of how they may have been able to position themselves in the matrix. So give me one quick second, one more time. I'm going to pop up the lights here. All right, live. I can always edit that out later, but some things you can't fix. So here it is. So again, that's your disclaimer. You know, we got a twofold existence. Work on your spiritual life. We got PhDs happening in metaphysics. We got metaphysicians being pumped out around the clock from listening to the conscious knowledge and just tuning into the vibration, which is the same as tuning into themselves. Understand, okay? But in the external world, the masters of the game now must come forth. This is that once you realize in the alchemical measures exactly what's happening here with all the elements, your energy, the current, the currency, and all that, and then the continuous unfolded of unexpected what's next, the shock and awe, if you may. Like, okay, here it is. It's happening. What do we do with it? Here's the new energy. What do we turn it into? Okay. So the first thing is that, well, let me just get into my notes here because I have quite a few slides, and instead of showing all the slides today, I just chose a few slides. I actually prepared a bit for this presentation today in relation to AI because it's probably going to be one of my last times talking about it because it's not the favorite topic for me. In fact, we're big on solutions. We actually have more solutions than problems. And even when I'm done with our build today, which I hope to do under an hour, I will give you those solutions so that way you can keep going forth and doing as you always do, growing and expanding. But remember, everything is growth for the soul. So you don't want to be acting childish when it's time to be adept. And you can see in the world something is telling you, hey, it's time to get adept. It's time to actually wake up to what's going on and get out of the childlike thing and get ready to make some decisions. I don't care what kind of mishaps you think you've been through. I don't care how old you think you are and that you still got more time. I don't care anything that you're telling yourself. The bigger clock, the alert system is saying, hey, it's time for you to actually get up and actually get ready to be who you truly are. So don't be sluggish about that, because now our current surrogate parents, meaning the ones that have taken control of the reality, have gotten themselves into some trouble. And I can't say that more than anything. They've gotten themselves into some trouble. They finally did it because they're kids too. They finally started playing with something and it's caused a big issue. And that issue is actually not even just a spiritual or metaphysical issue. You'll actually see it in the reality right now. And so from henceforth today, after you learn what I'm telling you today, you're going to see this stuff all over the place. And you'll be like, ugh, yeah, they gotten themselves into quite a pinch. Because there used to be this term that my enemy's enemy is my friend. Okay? Remember that. I'll let that bake in. My enemy's enemy is my friend. Do you remember that statement? That basically says in a nutshell that if there's somebody that is my opposition, whoever their opposition is, that we have something in common. So that means that we should be able to actually ally since this is our enemy. Okay, so that used to be the case in most scenarios. It's actually also a formula. It's no longer true. Right now, some of the situations that we've been dealing with, especially with the government, if you may, many people have seen that as more of a predatory, sometimes draconian force, aka maybe the enemy. Okay? We complain all the time about it. There's tons of videos about it. There's tons of conspiracies about it. And at that point, it kind of sits in our heart that this is the enemy. Okay? Now, that you put in your heart as the enemy has another problem. A problem that was created as a byproduct of the continuous struggle of trying to get ahead. And I'm going to show you step by step how it all unfolded. But first, I have, again, another disclaimer for you about just what it takes to get through all of this. So we begin with the end. This says companies, but I crossed that out. Brilliant statement here. I crossed that out because in their world, companies or corps or corporations are people. It takes people inside of corporations. That used to be the old model. You had to have people inside the corporation for it to become a corporation, for it to become an entity. Again, all of this is still metaphysics. So when they started studying deep into companies, it's really like you're studying deeper into the human being. So it's important to just remove the companies word here and just read this. And it says people fail not because they make the wrong decisions. So right away, I want you to know in your heart that it's not that you're doing something wrong. Get out of the whole right and wrong. I need to be punished. I'm so sorry for myself. All that low vibratory stuff. Because I'm going to tell you, you can't do anything with that but manifest that. That's how the fuels work. So if you're in the low vibratory, you're not going to be able to do anything anyway. You might as well get out of the funk. But it's not because they make wrong decisions that they fail. It's because they make the right decisions for circumstances that are about to become history. You got to bake in on that one for a moment. What would it be like to be making all these plans for 5, even 10 years? You know, some folks are still in college right now. They're going to school for an industry that is going to be obsolete when they graduate. And they're still in there working hard, taking all the tests, you know, not even clowning and skipping class and all that, just really into it, thinking that there's going to be a future for them. But because there's a lack of 360 degree, which has a lot to do with sovereignty, knowing that you shouldn't be dependent on anybody, you need to be checking base. You shouldn't be just taking someone's word for it. Oh, don't worry, this is going to work. This is one of the most influential careers that are going to happen in the future. Here, become a psychologist. How many of us here have friends that are psychologists? You know, because it sounded great. And then now they got that 6-year, 8-year psychology degree. They expected, based on the last TV show that they were sold, they would be, someone rich would be sitting on their couch telling them all their problems. And then they would be just prescribing these different drugs and things, and then being able to sit with psychologist friends and have this amazing tea time in a penthouse in New York. So you see, our imagination, it can get the best of us, because I call it eating things before they manifest. We can start thinking of the future that we're going to potentially live in and start eating that whole thing up so much that we get locked into that future before we even start manifesting that future. And we're still working for it because we all ate it already. Like, yeah, at one point I'm gonna have my condo, then I'm gonna have my car. And then it's like, you ate that already though in excitement. And in that energetic transfer, maybe you didn't check back to see if that was even going to be valid. Maybe at certain points in the junctions, you didn't switch tracks because you saw, hey, this is what's really going to actually happen in the game, and I need to be prepared for that. So that means that even if I have to flush 10 years of investment, or you won't flush it, it's still your foundation. But if I have to skip to something else, then that's what I have to do. I like it. I like what it says. It's like, now you've learned, but now you must unlearn. And this is way more difficult. Now you would have to actually let it go, see it as not as valuable, so you can actually get a hold of something else. And that's always what I say. If your hand is closed and you're trying to receive something, you have to let go what you're holding on to before you can receive something, right? So here it is again. So you've seen that. So I'm going to keep going here because I do have some layouts and notes. There's structures to this. I also want to say, in relation to what's happening now in the world, as I was mentioning earlier, when you bring technology from thousands, 2,000, 4,000, whatever years in the future, because it's gone quantum, how is everybody else going to process that? This is why this is so difficult. This is why I'm still at 100,000 subscribers in 10 years. I know guys that just pick their boogers all day and have more subscribers than that. Because we're going at what it is the big thing, what everybody wants to ignore. Okay? So give me just a quick moment here. I got something happening in the studio. I'm going to let it, pass and do its thing. Okay, let me just get back on track here. So where I was before I got onto that topic, was what I'm calling the ultimate catch-22, where your enemy's enemy is no longer your friend. That what has been set up in the world now is an extreme level of competition, where the loser in this game is going to lose so bad they can't even accept it. It's like a kid not being able to accept that they've been outdone and beat in their own game. Okay, so I'm just going to start speeding through this just so that we can get some foreground going on here. So we're going to go from slide to slide, and what I'm going to explain to you step by step is the issue that has now occurred with artificial intelligence and what has been the government, the states, every intelligence organizations, every large and major corporation's response to a threat that I won't say you and I, because that's obviously why I'm delivering this today, because this is something I've been aware about for a while. I have a video, earlier video that actually is titled The Real Skynet. If you want to go and find something that kind of digs into this in another way, The Real Skynet. But there was an awareness that this AI, digital banking, and all of that was coming to a head. And then a dossier drops on my lap, and it literally states step by step why we're experiencing what I'm just calling covert 19. Okay. So as it states, it says, in the press and the politics of America and Europe, AI is painted as something to be feared. That is eroding privacy and stealing jobs. Conversely, China views it as both a tool for solving major macroeconomic challenges in order to sustain their economic miracle, and an opportunity to take technological leadership on the global stage. Okay? So right away, what this dossier is stating is that the feeling of AI in China is like, just like what you see with a lot of the hentai and the manga and all the different cultures that even, come out of Japan, with just how much the computer is actually adored and artificial intelligence is actually adored. Versus in this society specific, the Western society is actually seen as an invasion of privacy. So two totally different energies. One energy that's saying, yes, we welcome it, let's use it. And another one that's saying, hey, we need to be cautious. I don't want this thing reading my emails. I want my privacy. This is also a big part of, because of how each nation was raised. The Western world is raised on the spirit of rebellion. That's why it's capable of creating these kind of things. Like, you're not seeing that your quote unquote freedoms to do whatever you want to do, or those ones that we used to have to do whatever we want to do, create what we want to create, believe in what we want to believe in, say what we want to say. That breeds still that new innovative things can come out of that. Now, you also get mass murderers out of that. You also get things that you would never see in societies that don't allow that kind of freedom. But it's like the sacrifice of bringing in a rebellious and an anarchist nation for the benefit of actually bringing in technologies and innovations such as the world has never seen, an ultimate level of creativity. So there becomes a term that I want you to also get familiar with before, as we keep going through this. And this term is known as leapfrogging. In fact, I've kind of dubbed this whole thing myself Project Leapfrog, because it actually explains so much about the attitude and the energy around, especially the U.S. corporations, in relation to what they're experiencing from the technological industries moving in the Orient and in China right now. Leapfrogging in emerging markets is not driven by individual brilliance. Okay, so now I'm going to define for you what leapfrogging means in this context. Leapfrogging is, let's say, for instance, I invent something, okay? And I mean, it's homegrown, from the first guy who had the idea to all the process of us pioneering and bringing it forth, taking it out of beta, putting it in special version 1, version 2, version 3, until it's finally sound enough to even make a consumer grade version of it. So I've birthed something. But what if, because of certain conditions that are going on in my camp, that what I birth, I'm not even able to really see the full magnitude of its use? Now, this kind of happens all the time anyway, though, because sometimes, let's say you can start an idea, a company or corporation, but someone else that has a well-oiled machine may be able to excel far more than you're able to do with what you just have. And as I said, you see this also in the design of business so much. Like, even singers, they can make amazing music. I know people who make amazing music, but they can't sell one album because they need to go through this whole process, that's slowly but surely been changing, but now it's going to switch to something else. But it never came out. It never came off of companies like BMI and big distributors needing to be in play in order for you to have the kind of absorption with what you're producing than what you would be able to do by yourself. But after all, you made that song. But the song is not made until it goes through this machine. So Just remember that the term leapfrogging is a direct reference to you created something, but you're not even the biggest benefactor of it because of certain conditions. And what's happening, just to make this very clear for those of y'all that got to work and just say, hey, I just get to the point, I got to go work. What's happened is that the United States and all of the major companies, because that is the United States is a corporation, are really, really worried right now because they created something called AI, but another country, a direct competitor, is capable of using that technology way more than they ever thought they could. And this is happening predominantly because the structure of our society. The structure of our society with approvals, certifications, and rights is not what exists there. When the government decides what it wants to do over there, they do it. There's no bills that need to be passed. There's no votes that need to be taken. There's none of that. They do when they want to do it. Here in the Western culture, which is a big part of what they call demos, which is where all the demons have a say-so, all the diamonds have a say-so, that people have to elect and vote things in. And this slows down a process that wants to move very fast. That's even the whole thing. AI and all this stuff is about moving faster and moving more efficient. So this thing wants to move fast, it wants to move efficient, but the structure of the society is not allowing it to do that. So what I'm telling you is, in America, the structure in all Western countries, the structure is designed in a way that doesn't allow AI to be implemented. So COVID-19 is a last-ditch effort to actually bring in some kind of infrastructure legally, technologically. This is why you're getting the 5G and all that ASAP and as soon as possible, because something is also happening over in China and the Orient that if you're not there all day, if you don't know technology, if you don't know financial technology and fintech, if you don't know history and her story, like things that happened in the past when treaties were just made, when nobody actually said that the war was over and they're still at war, when all those things are happening, which may be omitted by a child. And that's why I said this is not a kid's conversation. This is not a neophyte's conversation, because these people will sit in all day and complain about all of this and do nothing. Will offer no solutions. And on top of that, they may not even know what to complain about. That's what a child does. When you do something to a child, right? Let's say, for instance, a child about to run down the street and bust their head open, right? Get hit by a truck. And you snatch the child before they're about to go into the street. Whoa, what are you doing? And you try to give them even a little chastisement so they won't jump out in the street. Now, how are they perceiving that? By grabbing me and all hard and being the boss of me. But you were just about to go get hit by a truck. So what I'm saying is that there again is levels to this. And I'm going to show you how the levels are actually being moved around today and who's responsible for moving the levels around. So that way you can have a 360 of who's making the content for your children, who's going to be making the new laws, who's deploying AI, who has the only companies that survive COVID-19, what is the league and what are they actually doing? What are they dealing with as problems? How are they reacting to that? And what are the solutions? So it stops becoming this, like I said, this technology, again, is from the future. So those that are here in the past, we're still in emotional subsets, which is lovely. I love being in a great emotional subset where everything is feeling great and the passions are flowing and all of that. But this comes from a space where there is no emotional subset. That was already kind of deleted as taking too much time. It was a space and a gap in its processing. So it just removed it. And now it's here. So you have to know also how to move yourself if you want to keep living the life that you're living. What this is about is exit strategy today. Like if you love your life or you want to keep going on with your research and your studies and your growth spiritually, you won't have every single opportunity to do that if you listen to your internal voice and listen to your heart and listen to what resonates. And today is yet more gems that I'm now putting into the cave of wonders. So that way, when you feel like at all that you're defunct, you don't know what's going on, you're distraught, you don't have any solutions, you're a lie. I'm just going to make anything that's coming against you after this a lie. Just something that you're telling yourself because there's some program, and there's many of them, some program that's still running that you just need to delete because you'll have all the solutions. So let's keep going here. So as this states, now I call this being outdone because there's a lot of emotions tied into this. You got to realize that there's so much pride. Like even these flags and stuff. These flags are all about pride. Nations are all about pride. So when you get hurt or when you get beat at your own game, it doesn't feel good. It even produces a certain level of jealousy. So if you can see, let's say the controllers in the reality right now, they kind of bear all of the semblances of what we know to be the normal negs: jealousy, envy, gluttony, greed, all of those different things that basically don't end up pushing the spaceship into a great level of balance. They have this clipot, right? So the jealousy, the envy, the greed, the hatred, this is what they got themselves into because they're way down, right? And so in this, look what just happened here. On 11/11, which was Singles Day, again, because you don't really see anything from China. Only some of y'all know about Singles Day, but this is like Amazon Prime Day, but they do like a big event. And you see your boy from James Bond up there. They even brought him in to host part of it. And they do all this stuff. They do this huge spectacle for hours and hours of like 72, 48 hours of TV where they sell stuff and they bring people on, and it's a big event. So they're saying on Amazon Prime Day, we have $525 million made. On Alibaba Singles Day, though, there was $14.3 billion made. Are you at all getting a glimpse of what that would be like as, let's say, the owner of Amazon or even the owner of Tesla or even the government organizations? What it would be like to know that as far as the money is concerned, because everything is evaluated by who? The party that is not actually on any side. That's why the Swiss, they don't have no army. That's the banks. They don't need an army. So in the game, which is the game they set up, the ones who have the most chips win, because after all, it's their game. So when you evaluate, like, see, that dollar on the front makes it our game. That dollar sign, that ISIS sign on the front makes it our game. When that sign changes, when that symbol changes in front of that number, now the game switches. Now, I told everybody before, that's what cryptocurrency did, because there's a billion now, at least 1,000 different symbols that can go before that number. But the one that's there now, which is the symbol of ISIS, is the one that things are being measured by. So 525 million, 14.3 billion. And look what it says. American companies have a lot to gain by adopting ideas from Chinese companies also. Okay, so this is a dossier that is saying this is going to the highest ranking business members in the world. And it's being said that, hey, there's some stuff we need to learn from China. Again, this brings to mind leapfrogging in emerging markets is not driven by individual brilliance. Instead, it's the natural consequences of the structural conditions that exist within certain markets. What's being said here is literally, hey, it's no longer the smart, creative people that are going to create like wealth for us, because individual brilliance has nothing to do with leapfrogging. It actually has to do with the structure. And this market is, of course, the consumer market. Right? We're in the billion user showdown, they call it. Who has a billion users inside of their platform? So let's see what it says. So again, in this dossier, it then goes on that, hey, Let's look at some of the advantages of implementing what we call city brain. Okay, China put in city brain. Alibaba has selected to the national AI team for smart city applications. It turns out that having streets carpeted with cameras is good infrastructure for smart cities as well. Close collaborations with the government allows Alibaba to gather information like car, foot traffic, databases and surveillance from the databases and surveillance cameras. Government data mixed with Alibaba's own data and expertise in computing is a potent combination. Alibaba's City Brain product is being used in pilot cities like their home city in Hanghao, and to optimize the timing of the red lights and the traffic flow and the ambulances and the direct traffics in certain areas that are under construction. And it's purported it has reduced traffic time by 15.3% and cut ambulance arrival by 50% in pilot areas. Soon, municipalities will be able to make every infrastructure decision, from filling potholes to building subway lines based on complete data and how every person is moving through the city. Okay? So let me again just excuse me. I didn't forward that slide, but let me put that slide back up here because it wasn't on the screen. Excuse me. Boom, 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 leapfrogging. I'll just put this up again and I'll explain this. So again, an ode to the jealousy. So imagine again that now that they're so far along, China's so far along in AI, they're actually implementing it in every single space to shave off every piece of misuse, lost time, irrelevant moment, anything that is hampering the infrastructure of the cityplex or the metropolis, if you may. Now, what kind of efficiency does that bring in? Oh man, like I said, and the traffic's moving, they retimed all of the lights. They got 50% optimization going on when there's emergencies taking place, so people are actually getting rushed to the hospital faster. So all this is happening. So now, mind you, though, you have Smeagol looking at all of this, okay? Like you have a guy with a bunker buster saying, okay, how can we survive in this? This is what I'm trying to explain to you today, that now your enemy's enemy is no longer your friend. Your way of life, if this is not dealt with somehow, will end. That the difference between China and the United States is worlds. And we have to think about, is anybody even prepared to adapt to, like we think right now that even what they're saying now, stay in the house and all that, is telling folks what to do. You've never been to jail then. That's what's happened. It's like most people that experience this in reality have never been told you don't come out of the room until a certain time. You don't watch TV until a certain time, when it starts getting micromanaged like that, right? But that's already what's going on over there. And like I said, this is things people need to start getting prepared for, because I don't think that the community, the conscious community, and even the people abroad, I don't think large percentages of them are going to see the benefit of siding with the governments and siding with the intelligence agencies and siding with the large corporations in order to defeat a threat coming from China. That's big girl, big boy stuff right there. Meaning having to sit and make the decision that, hey, do I support my enemy because his enemy is now going to destroy our entire way of life? Okay? That's not a decision that I think anybody really is capable of making at this stage too much, unless they've accepted some level of adepthood, which I'm going to show you some of the beings that have done that already too, just to prove to you that in the game, there are big players in the game that always have an older stature and type of demeanor about them and make decisions beyond, is this good to do? Is this bad to do? There's far more integers that actually have to control that over a span of time. Now, an ode to the burden, heavy is the head that wears the crown, as they say. Imagine if you got to make all of these damn decisions. Some people back there already folding underneath this. What do? I don't want to make a decision at all. Why don't they just fix it? I can't believe this. I don't have to accept this. You don't. The spiritual world awaits. It's glorious. But if you're in the game, then you do. This is what separates those who are mature and adept in the game masters of the game versus those who are just children, vainly reciting, keeping a lot of racket going on, talking, not making any solutions, not actually collecting together, not putting in a structure, and not seeing the future and assessing the skill set that we have amongst us, the levels of loyalty, the mission statements, the alignments that need to happen, the joint ventures, and the linking that needs to happen internationally. If one's not assessing and making those kind of moves, then just a child in the game, a novice, a noob. Okay, so let's keep going. So as you see here, smart cities and ideas like this. Now, we're only just beginning. Now, I've introduced to you a few things that already is like, okay, well, yeah, if someone has implemented that, I don't want you to just get locked up right now. Is this the right thing or the wrong thing? Because this is the wrong conversation for you. I want you to now go a step further and say, okay, it's implemented now. Who's going to benefit more? Somebody who hasn't implemented or somebody who's scrambling even to get the laws together to actually implement it? Scrambling even to get the right people together to actually build the infrastructure. That's what this whole 5G thing has been about. The US being late, being lazy, scrambling around now at the moment to try to put up an infrastructure that will allow them to run at least a 25% autonomous society. And we'll look at that here in just a moment. 25% autonomy, meaning that the society can run without a human, the percentage of how much of the society can run without a human engaging. And then always it needs to be first things like logistics. They call it the top 7 careers. You look at the top 7 careers and you determine which one of these can be automated. So logistics is a big one of them, the trucks that are going down the roads. So the 5G can take this truck all the way from Panama all the way to Nicaragua without a driver. And in a recession-proof, which all businesses should struggle to be recession-proof, and now a new one, pandemic-proof, in that level of system, you would have that kind of infrastructure. But because that infrastructure is not even on the street yet, you can see how they're scrambling. And then when they go and hire somebody for cheap, which is Huawei, I believe, then they figure out, oh shit, there's chips in here that are giving the data over to them. We got to, what do? We're too late. I think we've been partying too long with the Wolf on Wall Street. How do we get this stuff under wraps? Let's call Trump. Let's tell him. So you see, it's a frenzy right now. And that's why you're experiencing this. Not everybody's in alignment, because when you study the real Skynet, as I put as a video, you'll also see that not everybody is in the know at all. Having in the political spectrum, having a conversation with a 60-year-old senator about cryptocurrency is the same as having a conversation with a 60-year-old gold bug about cryptocurrency. They don't get it. Same thing that happened with the Rockefellers when they were being told, hey, there's going to be some upstart Jewish boys coming out of Silicon Valley with this new technology, and they're going to make so much money, it's going to make our numbers look stupid. Nah, how could that ever happen? How could anybody ever want to buy stuff online? And it makes no sense. I wouldn't want to waste my money on that, son. Sit down. Now it's too late. So this consistent thing, and that's why I was saying players in the game and masters in the game, this is not the only, what you see in the United States in this Western structure and the people that I'm going to show you here in a moment, they're not the only ones. There's billions of us here, and there's places that you've never even seen. There's places in the ocean. There's places inside of caves. There's stuff in big, deep bases underground, advanced technologies, some stuff off-world or in the firmament, ships floating through the sky, being cloaked from the top of the sky with the bottom of the ship actually just reflecting what's from the top. But where are you at in the game? Are you leveling up, or are you just waiting for your exit and your reentry? This is what this is about, is gaining the bearing of how to actually manage the current in these situations. These situations are about current. A lot of current is rolled in, as you'll see here in a moment. And then now structures are trying to readjust for being able to handle this type of current. So let me keep going here. So now you see the smart cities. Let me keep going. Now you know about leapfrogging. Now here our next slide talks about the autonomous vehicle prediction. Okay, so what does it say here? It says the autonomous vehicle prediction is now here again, leapfrogging. Google created autonomous vehicles. Waymo is unambiguously the leader, though, and that is actually based overseas. The adoption, I fully expect China to achieve mass autonomous adoption before the US. Explicit government support will mean the clearing of regulatory barriers. Regulatory barriers happen easily, and perhaps cities will be re-architected and around AV explicit government support. Crucially, the lack of mass car ownership leads to far more consumer repetitiveness to AVs, lack of legacy systems, which we'll explain here in a moment. Iteration. It's very possible that early mass adoption leads to virtuous cycles that allows China's core self-driving tech to accelerate beyond Western counterparts. Now, another fear. Do you see how fear is gripping them? With one belt run road running completely autonomously, come on. We still have the motif of our good old American truck drivers who have been bringing in products for decades, and his father was even driving trucks. You got kids that grow up wanting to be truck drivers. They love these trucks so much. So imagine when there's no humans and you have an infrastructure running across half of the world and it doesn't need a human to get in that car and to actually take that package over there. So this autonomous adaptation, I've only seen some of the countries in Europe right now actually adapt fast enough because they did approve the drone flights. They have the infrastructure where they're already pretty much leaving a zero carbon footprint, so everything is electric. So this means that the drones can actually come and drop off the packages just in case people cannot come into contact with each other. What happened when that tried to get passed in California? Oh man, drones in the air, surveillance, and everybody voted it down in the Senate. So we still do have a structure in society that works on these voting systems, and all the systems can't be rigged. It's like trying to get all the big corporations and big money in and trying to be there with the people and trying to hire the right people to tell them what they need to do and then getting the vote right. And by the time the vote is done, the people don't want it. Now there's no flying helicopters bringing in products. So autonomous drones bringing in products. So that means in any situation like a pandemic, then nobody's able to get anything because nobody can actually deliver it. So they're simulating this. This is what COVID-19 is. It is what we call in developing AI a chaos event. Okay, and I spoke about this again inside of the Real Skynet, I believe. But a chaos event is when an AI comes online. It is like a child in every extent. So once a neural network is booted up, it has the brain of a child. It is using the same sequences of how the child learns things, and this is by what it sees. Okay, and what they found out is that when they were feeding these large data sets to the AI to bring it online and to bring it at least to mediocre, if not strong AI, they found that the data sets like stoplights and all this kind of stuff wasn't really boosting the AI's awareness of where it was and what to do about where it was. So it wasn't getting it to a level that they could actually even find it useful until they figured out that if you turn AI over or plug AI into, especially to telephone lines and the communication networks, when a chaotic situation is happening, AI is capable of learning way more faster. I mean, the quotients are off the chart of how much faster it can learn. And it's because people are finally being what? Real. When there's a shooting or something, people are on their phones. They're doing the real human. They're not sitting there, dial back, nothing's happening. They're just shooting a breeze. No, they're saying who they are, what they need, what's going on. And they're doing that so precisely that when the AI is taking all that data in as initial set, meaning like basically that, hey, you could take this as real world. You don't got to go 1,000 times. This is what's happening. It actually grows and learns from that. Okay. So COVID-19 is a event also that is to increase strong AI. Now, we have strong AI systems in the Army. We have Elon Musk and Peter Thiel's system, Palantir. So we have many AI systems that are strong AI already bought online. And so when these events like what we're seeing now is taking place, data is being fed some way, some shape, some form, even privately, in order to increase this thing's level of awareness. But again, how can it be deployed? That's what you have to realize. It's just like that old notion when you think about, well, shoot, my life is not really like that interesting anyway. So even if they're watching me, so what, right? Exactly. what can really be done with this type of data anyway, especially if there's no throughput for it, like some place to actually put it where it'll be useful. So do you see also where China has accelerated is they actually found some use for taking all this data. So let me show you some of the things that they've been capable of doing with DNA. But first of all, before I jump ahead of that, I want you to also, because you should be able to teach this too, you should learn the difference between the systems that we have right now versus what's coming, okay? So by the way, you've seen this adaptation for autonomous driving and why that becomes so important. If you got an entire highway system running for thousands of miles that can take an autonomous truck can get on that highway and take that package down with no driver that needs sleep or anything else, and thousands of trucks can even be managed by 2 or 3 people from a mainframe. This is maximum. This is moving at the quantum speed of how fast the technology is growing things. Do you get it? So what happens is the technology is already making recommendations. I know people that said they jumped into machines that had AI running, and the AI had already made upgrades. So this is even vehicles that were using AI, let's say, i.e. a tank. When the morning came around and the soldier got in the tank, the AI had updated the tank and then advised the soldier about what updates it had made in order to create a greater level of efficiency and precision within the tank. So the software is updating itself basically without a human being there and just informs the human. And so here what you're seeing is that now the biggest overarching complaint is that we are still using what is now called legacy systems. And anybody that's familiar with technology is familiar with the term, but those that are not will get this explanation. Legacy simply means the previous, the original, the one that was actually the one that's working before, but its infrastructure and its architecture is still different than what's to come. So of course, there's even an upgrade here that you found that happened with the Apple computers. And now if you switch from Mojave to Catalina, a lot of your stuff didn't work anymore. Any 32-bit frameworks, programs do not work on Catalina. So what those programs are called is legacy programs. And for you to run them, you need to go back. This is as simple as it is. You need to go back to the previous version and you cannot upgrade. Okay? So this term is used. And so what does it say? The US has many legacy systems that are good enough. Retail, malls, Walmart, messaging, unlimited texting plans, payments, credit cards, banking, retail banking locations, video, TV networks, computing, widespread use and understanding of the PC. Okay? However, what? And good enough hinders adoption of new things. So they're not satisfied. That previous method is not going to get it, is what they're saying. They're saying that it's good enough, it hinders adoption. That's why in China, what did it say? E-commerce leapfrogs with mass retail, like what you saw earlier with Singles Day and the apps that are being used, WeChat, etc. All the sales being conducted in there. WeChat leapfrogs SMS. Alipay leapfrogs the credit card system. Mobile banking leapfrogs retail banking. Online video leapfrogs TV. And smartphones leapfrog PCs, right? So as it continues to go on, what's explained is that the future of global media distribution is really, from what is being stated here, one of the biggest concerns. And this is because if you remember just recently, we had a situation where they say that they called it the Russian collusion, right? The conspiracy of Russia meddling within the elections and utilizing advertisements and things to actually shift the mindset of the populace in order to bring certain people into power, into elections, right? Or into, I guess they call it in power, whatever. However, what's being said is that because these were still quote unquote US companies, there could be oversight. There could be an investigation. They could go into seeing who made those payments because they can, try to subpoena old Zuck. But what they're stating here is what happens though when the actual company that is the offending company is owned by another country that we don't have any control over. So basically what they're saying is, what happens if someone starts, because we have millions of users on TikTok right now that are all, let's say, inhabitants of the Western world. What happens if some media starts coming across TikTok that starts to sway the mindset of these Westerners? We can't call up China or Tencent and the owners of TikTok and tell them, hey, take this down. So what they're saying is that they're worried about when a big scandal takes place again in global media distribution and they don't have any control over it and they can't stop it. This could have endless ramifications for how they can even shift and change stories and narratives. So it says prediction, within the next 5 years, there will be international scandals in the media space, similar to what happened with Facebook in the 2016 election in Myanmar with the Rohingya Muslims. But instead of occurring on Western platforms, which again, Facebook, etc., some issues will also occur on Chinese platforms, with a company based in China bearing responsibility and making decisions. What decisions will they make? Who will make them? To what extent will the Chinese government be involved? And how will their response differ from what Western platforms would do? In the near future, these are the questions we will be asking for the first time. Okay? So there's a concern here. We can't control the narrative. This is not a U.S. citizen, a U.S. platform or anything, and all of our users are there. So that's what I was saying. Like, it's a very sticky situation right now because, so how do you fix something like this in this current setting? Do you tell all U.S. or American people that they cannot, or Western countries that they cannot use TikTok? Well, that's happened now in businesses, by the way. There was already an edict or law or whatever that if you work for certain companies, you cannot have TikTok installed on your phone because the AI within 24 hours knows everything about you. And I'll show you a slide here on that in a minute. So they don't want that data. I mean, because that could be somebody, a member of the DOD's kid, and they just pick up the phone and do some TikTok, and then now all of that data is visible to them. Okay? So they're saying we can't even control this narrative anymore. What are we going to do? So do you see? It's the sum of all fears for them. That's why it's important for you to adjust yourselves properly, which we're going to explain here in a moment with solutions, and actually get your exit strategy at least together. Be very mature, since many of you are actually responsible for others, and actually don't stick your head in the sand. Like, I'm here, as I said, it's a depth level conversation of players of the game, because the reality of this, like, it could be too much for being to process if they are not aware of who they are. If you're not aware that the spiritual world, it still trumps all of this. While we're going through this experience, we'll find yet greater things and more openings to assist others, and there'll be way more clarity than ever, versus the other person is like, it's contracting. What's going to happen? I'm going to want to sell my beast, and you're going to have that going on too. And that's going to happen mostly from neophytes and children that actually don't understand what's going on around them. So don't be one of them. Let's keep going through this. Be that support process for them, because you know what's going to happen. You know how to move, and you know how to benefit the most from what is taking place, i.e. the masters in the game. So as we keep going forward, so you see now again that, so there's a concern about, hey, how do we control on these apps that are not ours? Now, the next concern, China could end up, as it states, give me 1 second here. Okay. China could end up writing much of the rule book of international norms around the deployment of AI, especially for nations that are aligned ideologically with Beijing. Chinese AI is already crossing borders. CloudWalk is helping to build a national facial database in Zimbabwe. Yitu has begun selling image recognition tech to the Malinese police. Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia's capital, is integrating with Alibaba's City Brain product. Being the unambitious world leader in AI, that's funny. Being the unambitious world leader in AI would broaden China's sphere of influence among an international community that is inaccessibly looks to the pragmatic authoritarianism, of China and Singapore as an alternate to the Western liberal democracy. The global balance of power is shifting as the U.S. tilts increasingly isolationist and Pax Americana. Okay, now Pax Americana as a term, by the way, which is important to define, means basically a peaceful America. The idea of not going to war and being at war. So they're again stating here, this is something to see very clearly, isolationalist. This is also a supremacist, like when you actually think that you're the only one and you're the best one and all that kind of stuff. And then there comes in the Pax Americana, which is like, we don't need to go to war. We need to be at peace. So it's almost like, how could you be the best one and boast and brag about that, but then want to stay at peace? And this is the conflict that is happening with the overall populace of the Western world versus what the leaders in the government is actually doing, because they're not all about peace. They're all about making treaties. They're all about making agreements, and they will enforce those agreements if they have to. Versus the mindset of the people's like, let's not go to war. It's like the Vietnam thing. We don't need another separation. We don't need to be in Baghdad. We don't need to be in. And then there's this narrative running, which is only for kids, where nobody is actually sobering up, or a lot of people are not sobering up to the only way that the Western culture even stays alive is going to war with these countries. The only way you're even seeing all of your life the way it is because of how we're conducting things. And it's great to actually be able to sit back there and say, you're doing it wrong. But when they stop doing it, which is another option for them right now, when they stop doing it, it's like you create a power vacuum. Now you got even somebody that is more proficient at doing it, way more colder at doing it, doesn't have actually any kind of ties like, this is my family, these are my people, this was my nation, it was born by my forefathers. So do you see how this foundation that this world has been standing on in the Western culture is getting shaky? This is why we have to become sovereigns, because it actually it puts another. Let me put your foundation right there on, and you don't gotta depend on this. You can start actually getting yourself from depending on a foundation that now they're in a conundrum. Even as what I feel like is a person who has more use of my brain, if I try to figure this problem out for them, I would just blow up my brain. I was like, I don't even understand how you can even come back to people that you have actually been mistreating and abusing and then beg them for help to help you against a problem that is actually your enemy. But to try to explain to them that if they don't help you, then their world is going to be ended, even at the level that they're complaining for about it from, beyond just saying that directly. So, but you can see the conundrum. Imagine you're on the other end having to answer these questions and deal with this, which I'm going to show you. Some people actually have to do this. Some people actually have the job of actually trying to figure this out. So check this out. Now you see that, again, there's a concern for AI being basically handled by China. So because AI is capable of doing so many different things, that what people do with it, how it's done, what software is being used to do it, all will possibly be handled by China, is what is the concern, because it's already happening, and they've already named countries that it's happening. Now, since COVID-19, there's now been new adoptions. We don't even understand who is the owner of the system that was deployed inside of Australia just recently with the COVID tracking. Also, the tests itself are like a hard-coded census, meaning that when a person comes in and they get tested for this, they take the DNA, and then now this goes into like open databases because they're already trying to get that data. And I'm going to show you why here in a moment. But it's a last ditch effort for the Western countries around the world to say, shut everything down, shut the border. Shut the border, because we're able to accomplish a couple things when we shut borders. Anybody who's not from there, get out. And if you're from here, get back here now. Okay, we got everybody here. Okay, so all the computers, all the number systems from the airline flights and everything, they're counting. How many people do we really have that are really with us? And let's get the DNA and let's get everything else too. You see what I mean? So there's a lot of reasons why all this data is being collected, because they need hard numbers. AI needs hard numbers. It doesn't need fictitious numbers. It doesn't need likes and subscribes that come from bots. It needs real numbers to make real assessments. And this is what this all is a part of, with getting the data in alignment and getting the data needed. This is why there's been a lot of canceling of certain certification process from the USDA to other different places. There's no longer, as Trump has said, processes that you need to go through in order to get drugs approved and do certain things. All those regulations, though, have nothing to do with what most people think about it. Oh, now because they're going to do this and they're going to shoot us up with this. This is about big data. This is about AI, because there is a race that is already being lost. So look, the article spin. China's next target is the microchip hegemony. Okay, so what this is about is that there's really only one thing right now that is still the what do you call that? I guess the control point, like the actual control point in all this. It happens to do with the production of advanced silicone. It happens to do with how, as you see, now we got a new Pentium i9 processor that's being released to us, okay? So every time there's an upgrading in the processor, you'll notice the processors generally stay the same size. So how can something be upgraded but be the same size? And it's because the technology that's used to build the infrastructure and the framework is predominantly being done still in Japan. And because Japan is still aligned with the Western countries, technically the Western countries still have dominance over the manufacturing of chips. And they also have extra secret sauce with how their chips are being developed and how they're advancing the chips. They're probably getting that from AWAS himself, just to stay one more step ahead and keep the war going. But look at this. It says ZTE, and you see some articles there, but it says the ZTE, the cautionary tale of semiconductor import dependency. And I'm not going to read this because it's kind of convoluted the way that it reads, but specifically what it's talking about is what happens, though, is when we identify where we still have some power as a country, we still have power because we're making the chips. Then somebody tries to use that, generally in the powers, in the government offices and all this kind of stuff. They'll try to use that as like a bargaining chip. So what this is explaining is that the company ZTE was apparently making chips, and they were basically sanctioned. They know you can no longer make any chips for United States, blah, blah, blah. This caused the company to go under. And in that, China came to the sober realization that, hey, we're still depending on them for chips. We need to make our own chips. We need to keep pursuing the possibility of us making our own chips. And they talked about how this also kind of pushed them a bit closer with Taiwan. And this is another thing. Again, if you don't know geopolitics or any of that, you got China or mainland China, you got Taiwan, and you got Hong Kong, all claiming to be China, but all hate each other because of the dissensions that have gone on in there. I think actually Taiwan and Hong Kong may be a bit more closer to each other. But when we say China, this is also why, because this could get very confusing to you. You could say, well, how is this possible? Because I'm seeing threads where many of the companies and corporations that we're dealing with are actually dealing with the Chinese. Wait a minute. Is it Taiwan, Hong Kong, or mainland? Because those are different things. And somebody not knowing about the political landscape will make that, it's just like the ignorance. It's like, oh, all the Chinese, they're all Chinese. No, I got checked hard one time where I told one guy who was Chinese, and I was like, hey, man, you're from China. And he said, I'm not from China. I'm from Hong Kong. I was like, damn, man. I felt stupid for a minute. I went and grabbed my phone and was like, where the hell is that? China's in Hong Kong? And then I just, he was mad, so he left. And I later on realized, yeah, huge mistake. China's not Hong Kong. However, they both go under the name of China. So this is what happens when, if you just read something and it says made in China, you can assume it's a partnership with the China that I'm talking about right now, and maybe it's not. You just need to know the geopolitical setting and what has already been set up in Hong Kong and Taiwan. Taiwan is a massive chip manufacturer also for the United States, and also Japan, and these places are producing the chips. But they said that China is starting to be able to come a little closer to Taiwan these days, like, hey, me and you with the chips. We're already the same people. I know we had that problem where I ran you out and, totally took all the power from you when we became communists, but you're coming back. If you're not, remember, we got Silk Belt, Silk Road, the whole nine. So this is where the pressure is coming on at. Again, this way of Western life being concluded at a certain point as this continues if there's not something done. So they're scrambling. They don't even get a chance to take their vacation right now. So let's keep going here. We're almost done. So you know that there's a big thing about this, the processing chip dependency. Our next slide here is what I call this is AI with humans, okay? Because yes, for sure, the AI cannot do everything. There's things that it's just not proficient at. Humans need to come involved. So what this was about is that when ByteDance, which is another massive app, started, it was using the same systems that that TikTok was using to do this AI relevancy based, knowing what you like based on pictures in your folders and things that you upload, things that you like, and lots of other data that it can pull from different places. And then it starts serving you up this content, and then you're like, man, this is amazing. It knows what I like. But then at a certain point, it had this redundant factor that they started seeing in their models. And this redundant factor kind of like within 2 weeks, people were leaving the app because it was like the AI didn't know how to mix it up, if you may. It wasn't good at that. It's a little corny. So look what it says. So in a major philosophical reversal, this means a change in ideas of how things should work. ByteDance has hired 4,000 human moderators. Now, the thing is that when we have billions of humans on the planet, hiring 10,000 humans for a corporation that's in the billions of dollars, which you're going to see here in a moment, these corporations have more money than entire states. Some of these corporations have more money than entire nations. So it's easy for them to hire hundreds of thousands of people to augment AI to do what AI doesn't do well. So you see ByteDance hired 4,000 moderators. They have a staff of over 10,000 people, and they're just the moderation team, meaning they're responsible for going back in individually and making sure that AI is serving up profiles that actually feel more authentic and things that feel more humanoid, just because of simple changes that a human may make in how the data flows, okay? So this is the human AI collaboration and phenomena. Again, what we have coming that is also equally interesting is the use of the dinucleic acids, the use of DNA. So what we have here, as it states, it says the state database, biotech, and healthcare. Okay, this was an entire section. The potential impact of the government supply data is even more significant in biology and healthcare. So again, what it's saying is the biggest use, and this is the demarcation even in the conversation, that the biggest use of AI data, as it states here, is actually more biological. This could do from anything from anti-aging to large scope diagnosis to even preventing future pandemics, to create boutique drugs that actually allow certain people to be immune and other people to be infected. All those kind of things can be accumulated within state data sets, having the actual information of everybody inside of a specific geographical confinement. So what it's saying here is that the more significant in biology, it's more significant in biology and healthcare. In the near future, it wouldn't be a surprise. What do you know? It won't be a surprise to see the Chinese government require every single citizen have their DNA sequenced and stored in government databases, something nearly impossible to imagine in places as privacy conscious as the US and Europe. So now do you see also, hey, people out there, my folks out in Europe was good. We're in the same boat, US and Europe in this case, having this struggle. I want to make sure that that's very clear, that this is why you see Denmark over there scrambling. Everybody is scrambling because they're still aligned. Those are the Western cultures, if you may. But it's saying that this would be impossible to actually take everybody's DNA. I mean, can you see that? For sure. Like somebody comes to you and say, hey, give us your DNA. It's like, even under that pretense, it's like, no. But now, of course, if it's in the blood, it's in your swab, your DNA is there, they have it, but they don't have any authority to use it. And that kind of limits, no, not kind of, but it limits the full scope of what can be done with it. And even what you can know about what is being done. Like, hey, we're prescribing this for you because your DNA showed, hold on, how did you get my DNA? Oh, remember that swab you did in COVID-19? It was in there. But anyway, don't worry, we're trying to help you. So that's the thing. In the Western cultures, it's idea of getting DNA to do anything with by the government is not, it's frowned on. So it says the Chinese apparatus, let me continue here. It says the Chinese apparatus is well equipped to take advantage. Tencent. Now, I just thought Tencent made PUBG in a few movies. But it turns out Tencent, as I said, was pushing $30 million a day on PUBG. Tencent has already been, that's PlayerUnknown's Battleground for anybody. Tencent has already been named to the National AI Team for medical diagnosis using computer vision, and logical next step would be for medical advancements utilizing government DNA data, okay? And these medical advancements, because this again is a whole section, is just basically spanning into diagnosis, actually even being able to determine what diseases or what ailments large groups of people are going to be prone to because of how their DNA is structured. So if you got everybody coming from a specific province, and then they see this weakness in the DNA, then they know that November is going to be a bad time for all those people because they're all going to catch the flu that actually comes through during that time. So if you happen to have a company, and this is how far it's gone, AI is like the ultimate in separation. If you happen to have a company and 5% of your workforce consists of these people, we suggest, and this is AI, that you swap out those people, and then you'll be able to save over the next 20 years $4,632,473.36. It will go in like that. This is why. This is like, if you can think of the movies that we watch, and every time they show you the villains or the good guys, if either of them have this weapon, it gives them an extreme advantage over the opponent. And that's all I want you to be very clear about during this conversation, is that whoever gets this is going to have an extreme quantum advantage over who else doesn't get it. And it is highly possible that whoever doesn't have it will actually be the oppressed, because as it keeps making more revisions, it's only looking to move out things that are deemed non-useful or non-essential. Okay, so let's keep going with this. This is, again, to wake up some of y'all. Look, exit strategy time, because, you could be eating mangoes on the aisle somewhere having a great time, or you could be arguing against something that, again, I'm going to show you the people who have to make the real decisions about this stuff. You'll be arguing with them, and you got to ask yourself, maybe they have a bigger stake in the game than you do. This is another thing. People need to realize, like, if you've just been sitting on your couch all day, you probably don't have a real dog in this race or a big stake in the game beside your physical life. And if you're spiritually advanced, then that weighs or has even less value. But there's others who have actually staked all their claim on this, that their entire consciousness is not even aware of a spiritual world that they can get into and that they can manipulate. They're waiting on scientific proof that that is possible from a being that will not give it to them. So their idea is, if we don't coast towards this regeneration, and that's why AI and singularity hold hand in hand. AI and singularity is about being able to upload the consciousness. It's the same thing you see on all the Netflix series now. It's the same thing that you saw on Blade Runner, Johnny Mnemonics. I mean, you can go on, but being able to transpose the consciousness into some other mainframe in order to escape death. Right? So that's the only hope that they have, the transfer of the data from the telomeres into the dynonucleic streams, and then rebooting the stem cells and then regenerating with a sleeve. That's as much as that they have on this. While meanwhile, you got master meditators who's like, I'm leaving every night. Like, everything that you're scared of right now, I've already been through. I've already gone through all of those Sri Yantric rooms of experience. So again, this is about someone who has more in this game, more stake in this game. So they're feeling a little bit more threatened by the whole thing. And they feel, because of their positions that they've taken, because the severity and the seriousness of how they take this, that they need to make certain decisions very soon about how they're conducting this reality that they're in charge of. And if you're a child, they're in charge of you. And you're going to see that here very clearly in just 1 second. But if you're an adept, well, that's the whole thing. Ye have no God. You are your own God, so you make your own decision. And that's why I was saying, taking it off of spiritual autopilot. But let's finish up here. So we see this use of DNA coming forward. There's another slide here just very briefly about DNA and some of its uses. A national database purportedly contains over 1 billion faces of everyone over 18 within official ID. Okay? And I only have one thing that I'm highlighting here. The Chinese police has a data set of 40 million DNA samples that their official website boasts is the largest database in the world of its kind. So you can imagine when this goes to India, there's a couple articles here that I didn't actually include, but what happened is that even inside of India, all these technologies are being implemented rapidly. And 25% of the system that is inside of India, the cash system, the money system, was actually taken over by China, who introduced an app because people in India have these smartphones. They make smartphones in India. So they make the smartphone, they give them a smartphone, and then that becomes their bank. But there was an issue because also the taxes, they can now start collecting taxes. Most of the people in China weren't even paying taxes. So what was their solution? Let me show you something really briefly. Actually, I was skipping ahead a little bit on my notes here. Okay, I guess my cashless. Let me see real briefly here. Let me just, oh, there it is. Okay, bam. Okay, so what happened? Actually, I'm not skipping ahead. I'm on point. So here's the big thing. You could be sitting back there like, okay, well, but how would they implement this stuff? How would it even look? And I would say that they're just focused on the solutions. However, many are kind of confused about how a society that we live in right now can all of a sudden be changed into something else. And I think we're starting to get an idea that that can happen overnight. And as I explained before, I have a recording. If somebody could ever find it and just send it back to me as clear proofs, I explained proficiently that the name of these beings, when I was doing some research, inside the cabals and inside some of the spiritual groups, they had given themselves a name. And this name, when it translated into English, meant shocking, shock, that surprise, basically, that their technique, their power is to surprise people, basically to catch them off guard, and that their whole everything has been designed off of that principle. If you catch someone off guard, then they're not prepared. Like the Ronin says, I take your space, I take your time. This is a form of combat. Like if I take your space, if I decrease the distance between me and you, I take your time away to react. And then as even words like shock and awe or Shekinah actually are about very, very powerful things that can surprise a person in one moment. And in that surprising, it brings either a complete awakening, a complete terror, or horror, or shock. You ever had that term when they say somebody's gone into shock? It's a real thing, right? Some people never think about that. Some people go into shock. Big bomb drop, boom, everybody goes into shock. Like nobody's even, what even happened? And it's almost like their consciousness leaves, at least for a moment. So their name means something, means that, shock. Okay, so this is where you get this, all of a sudden now everybody can get on a plane. Whoa, where did that come from? That's the shock. All of a sudden now we're going over there, we're going overseas. Shit, why are we going overseas? Now I'm coming off the plane as a young military private. It's like, whoa, what did I sign up for? The shock. Okay, so in that shock-like ability, in India, what happened is a big break came last year. They called it a big break, okay? I'm sure it wasn't a big break for the people who participated in it. A big break came last year when India canceled 86% of its currency in circulation in an effort to cut corruption and bring people more into the tax net by forcing them to use less cash, okay? So this is the emergence of the cashless society, which we've kind of been on the path on for a bit with Zero.com, PayPal.com, aka Skynet, and the rest of what goes on over there. The cashless society, and the predominant reason for this is just not to control every single transaction you make and every time you buy a Gucci purse and some Jordans and some lipstick. It's not about that. It's about scalability. You cannot scale money very well. This is the biggest problem that is being dealt with right now is how do we get this money into their hands? So now we got to go, let's go to this bank account, this old banking system. Oh my goodness, I just added an extra digit and I sent 10 million over there to, they had people coming in saying, hey, I got $80,000. Hey, I got $200 million in my bank account from the government. Oh yeah, we made a mistake. Let me put that back. You got companies even saying, well, look, we're already valuated at 120 million. We don't need this 10 million here. You can have it back. Don't worry. You can keep it. It's free. So you have this messy, non-scalable system called cash that only has a number, which is not very proficient at keeping track of it, or systems that can actually keep track of it because it's never really bought back in a lot of times. So what this means is this cashless idea for them is like the dream because it really allows them to actually even soberly think that they can scale society. Because if you cannot scale cash, then you cannot implement the scale from cash, and you cannot implement artificially intelligent systems to do any kind of tracking because the actual form of finance and current cannot be tracked. And that's like the biggest thing to track. That's like the big, like if you have something doing formulas, this would be a huge gap open. It wouldn't be able to come up with the formulas because it wouldn't know how much money it was dealing with in the first place. So it wouldn't know how much it's saving, how much is really out there, none of that. So that's why scalable cash is happening fast. You see, America's even talking about getting their own crypto now. The crypto markets, the halving is taking place. Bitcoin is splitting. $2,000 go up on Bitcoin goes up in 1 week. So there is a digital system that is coming, and it's coming fast. And it's to get things cashless to be able to scale the whole process of the integration of these technologies. Okay. So as we keep going here, I'm almost complete. Let's see what we have here. This is deep understanding of users' content and content. Okay, so this is just some extra slides here just to close this down before we start getting into some of the solutions here. There's a highlight here just on, it says Facebook's famous 10 friends rule. Okay, so what is Facebook's famous 10 friends rule? I had to go into that and see what that was really about. And what it is Facebook says that if it has 10 of your friends, it knows who you are. That its system is capable of knowing who you are. And this, of course, is how the marketing works. This is how the relevancy works. This is how the targeting works with getting ads to the proper people, etc. So it goes on the virtuous cycle, more usage, more data, better recommendations, more engaging feeding, and more usage is what could be promised if you re-engineer from the core the system, okay? And so re-engineering the system from the core, it says, as Taotao complains, to be able to learn a user's preferences after just 24 hours of use. The recommendations engine is built on a deep understanding of users' content and context. And that, of course, is being handled by the AI. So within 24 hours, Taotao system that anybody loads on their phone will know so much about that person. It will be able to do, it has a deep understanding, not just an understanding, a deep understanding. Okay, so finalizing here, it's talked about that these digital payments and an adoption of defined vertical. Okay, so this is what I was explaining about, and actually these are my screenshots about the numbers actually. Now this is again what I was explaining about how, what adoption really means from a numbers level. And why that whole $500 million that they keep saying, like Bezos is, oh, he's got $400 million, blah, blah, blah. Man, that's, it's petty. The reason why Forbes is not even including China anymore inside of its richest people in the world, period, or you would only have Chinese people sitting there. So when you're talking about 12.8 trillion, okay? So it's saying that China's payment apps, 12.8 trillion. US, 578 billion in PayPal. So this is why remember when Elon was saying, hey, I think we need to go in a different direction with this. We need to create even something like Neuralink to defend a potential situation that could happen in the future with AI. Now, he said this almost 9 or 10 years ago when they started developing Neuralink. Now you see exactly what he was talking about. What he was saying is, hey, China is developing their AI so fast, the US is not going to implement AI until AI. When are they going to implement it? Because they can ask AI. It's still going to be 10 years until this law is moved, until this. It'll give them all the quotients. And with that assessment, it's like, well, we need to probably even try to create like a superhuman. Somebody who's able to put an AI into their brain and be able to keep helping us, because in a moment, even we as the owners of PayPal, this is Elon Musk and this is Peter Thiel. We as the owner of PayPal, we have 578 billion, but our competitor has 12.8 trillion. So we have a rapidly emerging scenario that is now taking place. Now then it may be going to take place. Now it is happening, and we need to prepare for that. So I'll just say, maybe FedEx me one of them Neuralinks. I'll take a look at it. Maybe, I may be able to harness something that'd be able to get us all into the next stage. But I'm just saying, how realistic. These are far-fetched, half-ditched efforts to try to stop something that leapfrogged its way beyond the people who developed it. Okay, so finishing off here, the iteration. So actually, this is not about reading. This is just to show you some numbers. So we're just going to talk some numbers here. You see that 12.8 trillion versus that little half a billion. Now, all these numbers are stupid to me and people like me and you, though. I will say, like, these folks are treating 100,000 like it's a $20 bill. Like, serious. Like, when was anybody talking trillions to you? There's also even I think it's in one of my final slides here, but it talks about how they even had a situation where China had given some companies billions of dollars and then even told them they had a short period of time to spend it all. You notice how it's like the other way around. Investors come to you and they're like, look, we need a return. Let's try to spend as least amount of the working capital as possible. And they're going to you on all this. China is like, here's 1 billion. You need to spend that in 1 year. We'll be back. This is the kind of checks that are being passed out. So you can imagine how many also allegiances and alliances have changed. And this is another big thing. This is why you see a skirmish going on. You know how there is a common concept that they all are working on the same side, but yet we keep seeing these internal skirmishes where they seem to all like have issues and problems with each other. That's happening even more. That's actually what's breaking it down the most. You have it like, well, Bill went and took his entire railroad company to China. I thought we were all in allegiance together. And then another one like, could you blame him, Trent? I mean, geez, he's got 5,000 kids. I mean, he's got to take care of, you see what I mean? Or 5,000 employees, basically, that he's got to take care of. So there's a lot of alignments that are actually coming out of alignment because basically these capitalists are going to where the money is. And then you have the devout patriots in the big corporations standing on the other end saying, we need to make this illegal. That's actually also what happened with the whole thing with Saddam Hussein. That one of the biggest things that happened with 9/11 was the freezing of all the bank accounts. It was so many of them. So many bank accounts got frozen. You may even know somebody. Your boy Hafiz that was selling stuff on the corner market got his bank account frozen because the U.S. was like, look, we need to stop all this money coming in and all these investments that they're doing. And they're doing it through these bank accounts. We need to make them terrorists and we need to stop this money. And these are the part of things that you can see happening in the background. But who had that memo? Now you just have a memo directly on what all this around you is about. We're still finishing up here. So numbers, that's what we're talking about. So look at this. Tencent has deployed 62 billion in over 350 companies since 2012. Those are disclosed deals alone. So they don't know how many corporations and companies Tencent owns. 62 billion. Alibaba, PM, and Lazada. That Paytm is the one that took over 25% of China's GDP and financial transactions and currents moving through. Strategic Stake, GoTech, Snapchat, Reddit, all your favorite apps. They got big stakes, meaning that they have 20 to 30% of the companies that even you feel are like American companies, right? But they're shareholder companies, to be very clear. Once a company goes public, who owns those shares? So this is strategics. This is the real art of war. Like they wrote the book. You would have to think that they would at some point start using it. Again, I want it to be very clear. This is not a direct blow against China. Like that'd be like somebody looking at our government and seeing what our government's doing and then now come at us. We're talking about the people who are making the decisions. You know, what I'm just so tired of seeing all the time is that, especially within the conscious community, which is supposed to be the most advanced, this continuous banana in the tailpipe kind of situation where everybody acts like they don't see what's coming, so they don't prepare for it, and then they're all whining about it when it happens. And it's like, no, we're more than prepared. We're more than capable. We're the most advanced beings on the planet. Like we're invading Earth. Like you guys are waiting on the alien invasion. Like we invaded Earth. What are you talking about? Like people need to expect us and see us coming, not us be looking to the sky and expecting to see something else coming here. So anyway, we won't get on that conversation today. But as you see, Alibaba and Tencent were both jumpstarts by strategic investments. Jack Ma built his company in his apartment. This will also let you know the difference in an American company versus the difference between a Chinese company. For them to have everybody inside this little bitty apartment in the U.S., they would have shut everybody down. And you would have had all of these people would have been the owner. That's how U.S. work is like, well, I ain't going to even do this logo unless I can get 10% of the company. Like anybody who's ever been involved in business, especially as a serial entrepreneur, you'll see these kind of things happen, especially in the Western culture where everybody wants to be an owner because they feel like their idea, whatever they're contributing to the whole thing, is enough to be the owner of the company, even though there's so much more that has to happen. But Jack Ma built this business with his work with his first group of workers, and they built it all out of his apartment building, which was super small. And they all sat there and they grind and worked until the Chinese government and a few others decided to invest in them as strategic partners. And then it went on from there. So it says so strategic investors are embedded in their DNA. So meaning that it's all really one party in there for them because they look at every single thing that they develop as being all, well, China's able to move in on any time something is developed and say, hey, you know, here's some money. We need to kind of take over a little bit. And that's just how it works. Now, let's talk about and finalize with some of the nitty gritty, meaning that, okay, so of course, I don't know what term I'm going to give them today. What should I call them today? Maybe I'll need them name this. But of course, in this system that we're in, they have not gone without alarm and they have not gone without coming up with some kind of solution, meaning they have deployed around the clock all types of organizations and agencies to begin to deal with this situation proficiently. So here you are at whitehouse.gov/AI. Okay. So a specific government site for AI. What does it say? Artificial intelligence for the American people. This is a .gov. This is whitehouse.gov. Okay. So you know it's not a game. So if you jumped in on this line today and you're like, I just don't think it's that. Because you're not thinking and you're not looking possibly. But this is something that is happening and they're gearing up for this rapidly and they're already geared up for this. The next thing, who is the commissions of, the term is the National Association of Advanced Intelligence or Artificial Intelligence, the National Committee of Artificial Intelligence. That's what it is. The National Security Commission of Artificial Intelligence. Okay. Now, only thing that we're looking at here, let me forward my camera. Boom. My camera wasn't live, so let me go back for a second here. whitehouse.gov/AI, artificial intelligence for the American people. So they have a plan. Second, the National Security Council for Artificial Intelligence. Who's sitting there? Obviously, one of the key leaders of alphabet.com, one of the key leaders in not only the military industrial complex, one of the key leaders of not only intelligence and central intelligence and also other organizations overseas. You have In-Q-Tel, which of course is the Central Intelligence's brand of computer technology and embedding and deployment. And you have many big names that nobody knows anything about because nobody is studying. This is what they say, that because when people learn how to read, they never really cherished it as much as those who created reading. And what that means is that this linguistic thing is deep because when you learn to read and you get your knowledge from what you learn, you go and study all of this. And then you know who you're dealing with. And then you're not surprised when this ends up panning out as JEDI, the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure. And $10 billion goes into it, where Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Oracle, and IBM, which are all of our major corporations that deal with technology, also co-chaired by who? Safra Catz. That's Safra Catz. Also, just a quick second, I got one more link because I'm almost done here before I jump right into solutions. I wanted to show you really briefly. We'll just say here. Okay, just doing your homework. That's it. You know, in the university, they only ask that you just do your homework. Okay, so who's really like programming and getting things going on? Because that happens when you're a child. Like all your subset is basically sitting inside of a movie on a reel somewhere. And we talked about how the reel is everything about occultism, how the real is designed, even the math that's being used, the terms that are being used, the actual Hollywood reel, the projector, the lights, the negatives, the stars, all of that, that's all universal construction, okay? So who's here? Well, you leave it up to yourself to decide if you want to look through this. I'll say it that way, because that could be on your own time. I'm just telling you that, well, let's take a second here. Safra is also here. So all of these people, which again, you could take your time in looking through them, make real decisions. And what I mean by that is that these people are so intrinsically involved in the future of the United States and the growth of the most wealthiest families in the world that they do have a vested interest in how this is going to go. They do have a vested interest at making sure that by any means that they are not going to be the underdogs. And the reason is because for that to happen to them, it would mean that every single thing that they've worked for and put all their time and intention into, all of the gains, all of the losses, all of the programming, all of the passports, every single thing that they've put into it will all be at stake and jeopardized by another country. This is about creating a nation. What we're not realizing is that even the ideals that we have, how do you get a group of people together that are all from different places, may even be coming in indigent, to actually all get along and to work for a common cause unless you create a new culture? So what Disney is and what Marvel is and Hulu and all the rest of even Christianity and all of that, that is to design a nation so that the people that are inside of that subset feel some connection with each other, even though they're not the same skin color or come from the same tribe and speak the same native languages, okay? You got to understand exactly how difficult something like that would be and what would be necessary for that to be created. So if you instruct someone in the culture of, let's say, the Tahitian culture, they come out as a person from Tahiti. Tahiti is my national identity. That's what I believe. And if you give them that structure, even let's say, for instance, if you give someone in the Mexican culture, you give them all of their gods and all of their ideals and all of their beliefs and their stories, their nursery rhymes, everything that makes them Mexican. Okay. So then if you try to drop them with that over somewhere else, like in Russia, you'll see they'll have a hard time melding and adapting and believing that they're connected. So what the U.S. did was, which is us, the US program, right? It's all of the United programs, is they took a certain level of knowledge from the goddess, and then they implemented that knowledge of how to actually try to unify and meld and mold things together in like a womb, where America, which is a goddess, became the womb for all of these children. They were all enveloped inside of it. And then all their ideals and their traits and everything that they were trained and instructed over generation after generation was really meticulously blended and put together in order for them to have these kind of ideals. The same ideals that make up what we are right now, a big part of what makes up what we are right now in the game. So what you're looking at when I'm showing you these images of these people is you're looking at other masters in the game that have such a high stake in the game, they kind of even forgot that they're even playing a game, if they ever even knew that in the first place. And what you have to be on point with doing is also realizing that while you're on the dimension and you're beyond reproach and high and holy, this means that nobody can tell you what to do. That is the rebellious nature, that you still need to practice wisdom, that you need to realize that adept is not a word. It's a way of life. It's what you really know. And 360 is the whole thing. Like, it's not just my spiritual life is great. This is like talking about like my sex life or like, like my another life, like my business life or whatever. My spiritual life is great. It's amazing. And it is so powerful in there that it has bled over into the physical reality. My physical reality beyond just my overall concern, which will cause me to be a bit of a workaholic for everybody else, my physical life is on point too. But it's a direct reflection of what had gone on in the spiritual life. So all I'm saying is that we have to get ourselves, if we're responsible for others, on point with what is really going to happen. We cannot be sitting back here like deer in the headlights, completely uninformed about the power struggle. They talk about AI, they talk about 5G, they talk about a lot of this stuff, but I don't feel like it's in the proper context. We're just simply laying out what's happening, and that's the house that we're staying in, meaning that you're staying in the house of United States of America in most cases. Some of y'all are also in Western countries. If that house collapses, more than likely your way of life is going to change. So you only actually have a few options. The longer it takes you to make decisions, the less options you have. Formulating an exit strategy is key. So let's get into some of the solutions here. Solution number 1, heal yourself spiritually. I can't say this enough. I said in the beginning of this conversation, so it's a great way to close things out. If you are already defunct spiritually, this is just going to seem like another Goliath that you're not going to be able to defeat. And in fact, some sat in this conversation today. They didn't listen to the disclaimer. They were neophytes at heart. And now they're listening to this and they're in denial. That does not help. I'd rather you not hear any of this at all. Erase all of it, which you can't, but in every context, erase all of it. Heal yourself spiritually and don't focus on any of this stuff. This is only for masters of the game. This is for those that are diving back into this to actually carve out other spectrums and vibrations and frequencies that we feel are habitable. Goals in life are simply to really create worlds. Worlds are also nations. They're actually a way of life, how we think, what we believe, where our money comes from, what we create. Notice in cultures, you got cultures that specialize in certain things, pots, silks, colors, dyes, something specific to them that the rest of the world needs. So that's building a nation. That's creating a community. That's what we've been working on. We've been creating an ecosystem for 11 years at Secret Energy. Yesterday was an amazing day for me, and it continues today because we finally got out of beta. And we've now deployed geolocation inside of Secret Energy. What this means is that now you're capable of seeing others that are actually in your area that are vibrating on this frequency of awareness. You're able to see common interests and you're able to see who's close to you. Also, if you want to turn it off, that's being mindful. Go to the settings, turn it off. But before you do that, see who's in your area, save them as a friend. Because in all of this, I always found, and I just take, again, a deep blueprint from when I was younger. When dealing with fears, you only need a friend. We would go on the wildest adventures. Like I grew up by a military base. So some of the times we would go on an adventure, we would go into those areas where we weren't supposed to be at. And none of us were scared because in my mind, I'm thinking, what are my friends' name? Brad. Brad was a badass. So I'm thinking, man, Brad, we run into some danger. Brad's going to do something. And I'm sure Brad's over there like, shoot, I know we run into something. James is going to do something. And we're on this journey fearless. So it's just a hard-coded model that when you're doing it with friends, you don't have the same fears, if fears at all, associated when you're doing it alone. So get with others that are around you. Heal yourself spiritually, because also you don't want to be bringing all of that imbalance. Get yourself together enough. Be responsible for the energy that you're bringing to others. If you know you never done a cleanse in your life, you're sarcastic, you have a nasty little attitude because you got a chip on your shoulder about something that happened that you still want repayment for, That's not something to bring to another person. You linking up with them and, hey, I'm around the corner from you. That's the same haphazard neophyte behavior. Clean up, tighten up. It's 2020. But you have that resource there now, and it's a powerful resource. The second thing is that just like we cracked the code of the matrix, it appears that we've come really close at this stage to cracking the code to the financial situation. That's one by, obviously, we've deployed a strong affiliation where there's over 100 and some odd amazing products that we actually have on the site that you can affiliate with. The commissions there on the total value, those are higher commissions than ClickBank, and you do nothing. We even have unobtrusive marketing. This just means you drop a link about knowledge. You don't drop a link about products. And then somebody reads that knowledge, it's your link right there. All that traction that's going to be caught, because it's going to happen when they come into the site. Man, that's like a metaphysical wonderland. So then they come in there, and if it's possible for them to make a financial transaction, then you're going to get credit for that transaction, which you should, because you were the reason why they came to the site in the first place. And then on top of that, if they can't do that, there's so many free resources that master metaphysicians begin to already work on the person's energetic field to get them to the stage, at least to float them to where they can get into ambassador training. In ambassador training, you got eniology being deployed where we're all learning about ourselves through each other and actually vibing and connecting on that way. Everybody you want to meet is there. And nothing more, nothing less. And even one more leg up, I'm happy to say that we now are at WealthyBot. I can say it's beta, but it's working for sure. And we got a lot rolling out on that in the next couple weeks. You know, I will give everyone a link now. I think that I would like someone in the chat, and I'm sure there's somebody there to do it, to just paste the video that is only on Vimeo right now, which is a quick tutorial. I wouldn't advise asking us any questions about this right now. The only reason why we're making it available is because we are moving fast. But we have some stuff like we want to put it in tutorials. So we don't want to answer questions like, how do I begin with cryptocurrency? How do I even put an API key in? In this tutorial that's 10 minutes, it explains to you how simple the process is. But then the stuff that you don't know about, we're building information around it. But we're not prepared right now to start answering all those questions. But we will be. In the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to utilize this system. And I booted up the system last night for myself, or over the last 2 days as I'm demoing out and testing it. And this is just a quick screenshot of what was going on since I started on the 30th. And I let the algorithm do what it does, and it's already bringing back, as you see in the profit column, these kind of percentages of gain before it moves out of the position. And this, of course, is within cryptocurrency. And it's completely polished, meaning that it has none of the drawbacks of the other systems out there, which are still only a few that claim to be able to do this. And then also, it's free. We actually only profit when you profit. You can go in there even now and use the simulator, which is what you were looking at. And the simulator, which you can do without even having a exchange account also. You can go into the simulator and boot it up and say, if I had $10,000 that I wanted to play with, or $3,000 that I want to play with, or $1,000 that I want to play with, how much would that be making me? And you'll see it take positions in Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then you'll see it move out of those positions when it has accrued the profits that you dictate, which is generally the 4%, and what you want to get in there as the fluctuations keep moving up and down. And what we continue to anticipate, as you've seen with crypto, they always say it's unstable. That's perfect for the system that we have. It loves that up and down action because it gets in and it gets out. Today, I want to make it very clear to everyone that's been listening to this message. We've done our best. From the knowledge and the awareness to the wisdom, to the connection, to the tools, to the techniques, the technologies. There's no more excuses here. Every single thing here can build you up on levels that you had never even dreamed possible. I started on a level not believing any of this would be possible. I seen things that made me have to change everything about what I thought was going to be possible. It is more difficult these days, period, for me to prove, for me not to prove that there's a paranormal existence, afterlife, etc., than it would be for me to disapprove that through my experience. And all of us have to get there at a certain point. That's called unshakable and unwavering faith, to where your foundation is not built on hearsay, gods that don't respond, books that read out very well like poetry, but don't deliver any real benefits, especially in the society and the times that we're living in right now. But that's not our story. That's what I'm here to tell you today. There's an artificial future coming without a doubt. Unless you want to go against, as you can continue to study and see what pickle they're in, if you want to try to push against that, which would mean, what would you even be pushing for? You going to push for China? Like, you got to actually get on your own here in a moment now. But you don't got to be by yourself. If you feel alone, you still got breath. All of your allies are still clear. Water, clear. Those are our greatest allies. And it just keeps going on from there. And with the best on your team, these are the winners. These are the real winners in the existence. Wind is not worrying about death. Anything that moves becomes it. Also, maturity is key here. This is why we're having this conversation today. I really want those in the tribe that feel they're ready to continuously step in the maturity of themselves and the adepthood of themselves by knowing what's going on, but being unwavered by it. Lastly, when you see financial technologies, because that is the emerging future, it is here now, fintech, financial technology, what you notice is the numbers are stupid. That's our term, right? 42 trillion, okay? So it becomes kind of obvious, especially with the stimuluses that are coming in, that things are going to probably get a little more expensive at least. $15 maybe on a Big Mac. So this means that beyond UBI, which is Universal Basic Income, which is pretty much being deployed right now, $1,200 ain't enough. That's welfare though. There's some people that were already living on $1,200 before the people who now don't have jobs anymore try to figure out how to do that. This also means that you're going to have a whole current in the reality, 20, 30, 40% of the people that didn't consist of the upper middle class, that they're going to just be so upset, so angry, but so not caring about what happens because they don't feel empowered that they could do something about this anyway. If you jump on that boat, you'll have a horrible time here in the future. It's time for you to empower yourself. It's time for you to be the Lord and the master of your own life. And it's also time for you as an adept to know how the world's moving and how the world's changing, who's moving it, who's changing it, and why. And that way, even if you're educating your children, maybe your child decides, you know what? I'm going to increase my stake in the game. I'm going to actually develop something that's going to solve these problems because now they're aware of these problems. You can't solve something you're not aware of. So we owe it to those who depend on us, especially if we're their parents or we act in any form of mentorship for them. We owe it to them to bring solution. Do you know what ties us into the physical reality? We're in love with this. That may sound silly to you, but yet you got folks here. You got babies here. You got things that you love. You got memories here. That's why we're into this. You don't get into something like this without that. Imagine vast being, limitless, goes into limitation for what? Love, connection, experience. Because in the other space, none of that exists. That connection, we're all connected. Experience, we already know everything. It's unmovable. Do you understand? The air does not move. Air does not exist there. There is no air. There's nothing to breathe. So even the little things that you cherish so much about this space, they're not there. It's a whole nother thing. I'm not saying it's boring because some people are like, well, that sounds boring then. It's beyond that. I can't explain it to you. So while we're here as masters in the game, we might as well learn exactly what's happening around us and exactly how powerful we truly are. I'm one person. There's a myriad of beings with me, but I'm one person that got up one day in my life and I decided I'm going to break this pattern. I see this pattern. I'm going to break this pattern. I'm not going to go up and down anymore unless it's my choice. I'm not going to keep being acted on by things that just come out of nowhere and disrupt my life. No one's going to tell me what I should be doing, but I'm going to be in charge of what I do, and I'm going to make the best decisions for myself. And that's when those activations started coming in. This is a decade now. I've never seen one person that was really serious about this, that was really serious about themselves and getting themselves to another level, not receive it. I've seen cats walk off the streets with nothing. Even in the negatives. It's one thing when just not have nothing. It's another thing when you're in debt. In the negatives, spiritually in debt. Now, at the level of master teacher, easily slated to beat my numbers. Like what you would say with Kobe and all them. He's slated to even go beyond where I'm at. This is the power of perfection and the proof of the wisdom and the type of people that it produces. Let yourself be about action. Also, as you see, times are changing. We really need some kind of context going on in the spiritual arena, the conscious community. First of all, the community. Who are we electing as our leaders? This thing is so rampant. It's like beyond the Nassim Harriman and the I could just name them off the hands. Everybody, Amuji, I could just name off the hand. They all appear on the same card together talking about the same thing. We need to know about the goddess and the divine feminine, the Sri Yantras, the Tantras, understanding self. And we need the techniques. Woman needs to be activated. That's the other thing. That's why they call the female the goddess and the warrior. Because if, first of all, the goddess is asleep. Everybody else is going to be asleep because we're inside of the goddess's womb. Duh. So the goal was to wake the goddess within. So on top of that, if the goddess doesn't know about herself and who she truly is, she's not in tune with herself, the divine masculine has nothing to explore. So they'll be bored fighting with each other with sticks and knives. So there is some reasons to why all of this is happening. And I trust that as we keep going forward, because so much of this knowledge and awareness has been revealed, that as our infrastructure becomes more robust, we're just coming out of beta with some of this stuff. There's even no reason to go to Facebook. Facebook doesn't even going to let you know who's around you. Every single thing is there. The chat's the whole nine. But as we keep developing and finishing what we're doing, then our infrastructure gets stronger. Our resources become stronger. We have another hydrogen product coming out, rolling with the winners, getting hydrogen in all the bodies in the purest form. That's going to do something energetically. So it's going to do something financially because we're going to be the producer of it, and then we're going to take the commissions way up there. This is a form of living, not just a passive income. That's solutions. Make sure the ones that you're listening to, especially right now, are bringing solutions. Do not let them sit in front of you for hours and tell you about stuff you already know because you're just being entertained. You may like watching that. I know some jumped online. They wanted to hear They want to hear how this was about the Terminator and how Arnold Schwarzenegger was really Conan and how Conan was really CNN. And right then they were already thinking about AI because even the place that they were living in was called AI. And then how they keep carrying on that culture until it actually resuscitated all the way down into an entity called AWAS when they blended themselves. So a lot of people came for that. They want that. I love that. But we need to understand exactly how the game works, though, because our children are in here. And remember, what I was showing you earlier is the people who took responsibility for dealing with this situation that we're dealing with now. These are the people. Like when you research them, these people have different positions and have been at different companies and started different things, MIT, Google, you name it. These are the people that are making these decisions. But what are they predominantly involved with? The kids, the culture, what we believe. What is Disney serving up right now on its station? Since its stocks is higher than ever because everybody's at home watching it. What kind of movies are we getting? What is Netflix serving up? I see more devils, demons, and dark lords and time-traveling killers in the last 3 months than in the entire movie history. So something's not clicking there. And that's why you're here. So wholeness and balance vibrations. You're here because your frequency is refreshing. What you have to deliver to this world and the magnitude in which you deliver it will be a sum total of the co-creation mixed with your uniqueness. You're able to go quantum yourself. They're not the only ones with the technologies from thousands of years into the future. We have timeless technologies coming off of the voice and vibrations of who we are. We have intonations. We have codes and scripts that connect us through time. We have dinonucleic fluids moving through us, carrying a database all the way into the timeless. Let's explore that. It's hard to do that if you're being distracted with things that are not about giving you the current in order to create more solutions, teaching you how to manage your current. For those that just need a one-on-one on financing, check out the Minority Mindset YouTube channel. Daspreet Singh, the Sikh. It gets repetitive over there. I'm sure anybody who's already been on the channel is like, I get it. That's really all you need to know about finances. That generally is what is missing from a lot of people's education. They don't know anything about money, yet they use it every single day. So this is what we got. Tomorrow, we're back in again with the key makers, shift gears. It'll be on point, obviously. And we'll keep digging into what we need to go through personally as a family, together as a tribe without an S. And now you go forward aware of what's going on around you. So that way, you're not freaking out when somebody's telling you the next COVID-19 and the next 5G story. You realize that this is a scramble from somebody who's in desperate measures to try to figure out how they're going to keep stabilizing a projection that they failed to include the right people in. So that's it. I'll speak with everyone soon. I have a hard time saying goodbyes, so I'm closing it down now. And it's opened up, obviously, on the other side of things. Check us out at Ambassador Training. If you have not gotten Ambassador Training and you have the means to, you're missing a special gift. There's tons of stuff over there. It's not anywhere else. We like to consider it a private group. You can go and learn more about yourself. You can actually connect with us in relation to ideology. If things are a little tight right now, maybe it actually hit you and you spent up all the stimulus check already. There's definitely something for you also in specialist training. You can start beginning to dive in free to the foundation, how things work, especially with your stuff going on financially. You can also become an affiliate and link with us in our profit shares of everything that we have going on and the things that we're creating so we can keep supporting each other. Wholeness.